Yeah, now I can change slides. Excellent. So, what are Sprint Bioscience? So we are a company working with small molecule drug discovery, focusing on oncology. And we want to be an innovative pharmaceutical company that develop drug programs in the preclinical stage for treatment of cancer. And with that we aim to, the overarching goal is to then obviously develop new therapies that can, for the benefit of cancer patients. And let's start with this slide. So when we started the company, I have a history from AstraZeneca, and I have some other co-founders as well who also have an industry background. And we had been working with a new technology at the time to develop small molecule drugs, which was called fragment-based drug discovery. And I will not go into the details of how we do that, but it's a very efficient way to develop new small molecule drugs. And basically what we do is we focus on different target proteins. So the blue blob here is the structure of a protein of interest. And typically these proteins bind to some biological molecule, which is the yellow molecule there, and then performs some sort of chemical reaction, usually, if it's an enzyme, to produce a product. And then there is this cavity in the protein where this biological molecule binds. And what we do is that we develop these purple compounds, which are basically inhibitors of these target proteins. So they bind to this cavity where the active site of the protein is, and they block the function of the enzyme. That's basically what we're doing. So we specialize in developing these purple compounds that are inhibitors. And the advantages with this technology is that it's a very efficient technology, that it's fairly easy to implement in a smaller company setting, as opposed to other technologies that requires a lot of infrastructure investments and automation and large-scale compound libraries and so on. But in this case, we use smaller molecules in our screening libraries, which reduces the complexity of this exercise. And then using a structure-based design approach, we develop these custom-made molecules that are sort of tailor-made to the target protein. This technology also allows us to fairly rapidly optimize these compounds towards final drug candidates. So the sort of core competences that we need in the company to be able to do what it is that we do is sort of roughly described in this picture. So we are, at the moment, 38 employees in the company. And as you can see, the different shades of pink and purple there represents the people working in the lab, in the R&D organization. And then we have a few people in green here, including myself, who are more sort of management, admin, and business development people. But you can see there's a large focus on the actual action in the lab. So we have a team of protein scientists who work to sort of with the first stages in all our projects, purify proteins, run different types of assays. And then we have a structure-based design team with crystallographers, protein crystallography, and computational chemistry. And then we have a team of medicinal chemists who synthesize these compounds that we develop. And then we have a team of cell biologists who test compounds in cell-based models and also are involved in outsourcing of the in vivo efficacy testing that we do not perform in-house, but all of the in vivo work is typically outsourced. So what the company is basically an engine to drive early-stage drug discovery projects. And what we do with these projects then from a business perspective is that we look for licensing partners that can take over these projects and bring them forward in this, to most of you, probably familiar process of drug discovery and development. So at Sprint Bioscience, we focus on the two black steps there, the discovery and the preclinical stages. And then we look for licensing partners who can take over these projects and take them through the clinical stages up until, hopefully, approval of a drug that gets onto the market. And the business model is depicted in the bottom there. So we invest in our projects during the startup phases, the discovery and the preclinical stage. And then when we find a licensing partner, there is an upfront payment that goes to us. And then there are a number of predefined milestone payments along the way as the project progresses. And then there is also a component of royalties on sales in the end if there is a product that reaches the market. So this enables us to sort of focus on the preclinical stage and build an expertise there, while still retaining sort of an upside in each project. If there is something that enters the market, there is a big opportunity there for income for us as a company. And the thing here is also that the partners are then taking over the responsibility to drive and fund the projects as they enter the clinical stages. So we do not have to invest in clinical trials on our own, which is also an advantage. So I thought, given I should give sort of an introduction to the company and also a history of the company, how we got started. So, I mean, we basically started with a number of empty hands and a team of co-founders. So, as you can see, we were 4 co-founders with sort of an industry background from AstraZeneca and Biovitrum. And then we had 1 academic co-founder at the Karolinska in Solna. And I like to use these photos. They are really miserable, but it's just an example of some of the photos that we used in our very first marketing material. And that just goes to show that when you start things, everything is not going to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. So you should focus on that. You get to see a lot of flashy PowerPoint presentations and so on from established companies, but when you start up, you really have to work with what you got. And this is what we had at the time. Anders Åberg, he was our first CEO, and he had a background from AstraZeneca in Gothenburg. And Kent Hallberg, he also has a background from AstraZeneca in Gothenburg. Jessica came from the Pharmacia Biovitrum sphere here in Stockholm area, and she's a medicinal chemist. And me, myself, more of a protein scientist. I used to work at AstraZeneca here in Södertälje. And Per Nordlund was actually my PhD supervisor. So he's also a structural biologist and biophysicist at the Karolinska Institute. And in 2008, when we started to sort of think about the idea of Sprint, there were a number of things happening in the pharma industry, and we saw sort of a market opportunity, really. So what was happening was that larger pharma companies were increasingly starting to source new projects externally. They realized that they were not very good at these earliest, most innovative stages of drug discovery and development, but they were looking to external partners for those projects to fill their pipelines, and they were starting to dismount early stage internal research. We had, as I mentioned, been working with this fragment-based drug discovery technology at the companies where we used to work, and saw the opportunity in that technology, But we also saw the challenges of implementing that in a large companies where these different disciplines that I mentioned are sort of scattered in the organization, and they might also be scattered geographically, and it becomes very difficult to get a really tight interaction and tight collaboration between the different disciplines. And that's sort of one of the driving visions behind when we started Sprint. We wanted to make sure that these people from these different disciplines got the opportunity to actually collaborate very closely together. So we have our labs up here, and we have offices where people from different disciplines that are working on the same project are sitting together to sort of encourage that very close collaboration between the different disciplines. We decided to focus on oncology as a therapeutic area. It's a very large therapeutic area with actually a large number of different diseases, and there's also a flow of new potential target proteins that we can start new projects around. So what we really wanted to build was an agile, innovative, and also integrated company with a focus on preclinical drug discovery. So how do you do that? So now, in the coming slides here, I will build sort of a timeline of what happened over the years. So we started out, actually got some access to some office space in the labs of Per Nordlund, a room that was part office supply store, and also got access to some lab equipment when we needed to do some lab work in the very earliest stages. We also got to inherit one project actually from Biovitrum, which was the top project here, PFKFB3. So each of these arrows will represent one of the target proteins and one of the projects that we have been working on over the years. And this project was actually put into another Swedish company called Cancera, who is still around. I don't think they are working on this project anymore, but this was sort of the first project that we managed to find sort of a partner for, and also were able to get some income from that. And during this stage, we were also doing some more contract research type work to bring in some of the money that we needed to run the company. We also started our first 2 internal projects at this time. And we were situated at the Solna site in the Skele laboratories. That's where we had our labs. And another milestone that happened during this time was that we were able to hire our first employees that were not part of the founding team. And you can see it's me and Jessica to the left there, and then in the middle were our 2 first employees, Camilla and Martin. And Camilla is still in the company today. So she's been with us for a very long time. And that's sort of one of the major milestones when you start to bring in people that you actually employ. That's a very sort of a big moment in the history of the company. And then at 2012, we really felt that we needed another place, sort of our own committed labs, and also started to build the chemistry team a bit more, because in these labs there were mainly sort of the protein science side of things at Per Nordlund's labs. So we actually got the opportunity to move to a newly built incubator for startups in the chemistry space called the Greenhouse Labs at the Royal Institute of Technology. So we moved there in 2012, and then we got our first own lab space. So this was, or still is, the Greenhouse Labs. It's sort of a purpose-built facility for smaller startups that need access to lab space. So it's fairly small labs and fairly small offices, and then some common areas with a lunchroom and meeting rooms and so on. So you can rent sort of one lab and one office And then when you need to grow, you can just add another lab, add another office. So it's a similar concept to the Novum labs here in this building. And you can see we have a nice view of the forest here from these labs as well, Liljanskogen. And we were actually able to sell our first project to this Scottish company, Iomet Pharma, and that called for some proper celebration, of course. And it was also during these years that we listed the company on the stock exchange here in Stockholm. So this is Anders ringing the bell on the first trading day of our shares. And this is just one picture of the team from that time. So this is, at this time we were roughly 12 people, with a number of people that are still around today. There are also some members of the board on this picture. So this was in 2014 when the company was listed. And then in 2015, our sort of first 3 years at Greenhouse Labs were coming to an end. We had like a 3-year contract, and then if you needed more space, you were supposed to find your own space so they could bring in new companies. So that's when we made the move here to Flemingsberg. So we got the opportunity to move in together with another company that was in the labs that we have today, Carobio. They were scaling down some of their internal research, and there was lab space available for us to share with them initially, but then eventually they decided to close down all of those activities, and we were able to more or less take over those labs. So that's when we sort of fast forward to today. As I mentioned, we are roughly 38 employees, and as you can see here, we've done a number of deals over the years with companies, based in Europe, in the US, and also in Korea. And we have a number of projects that we have also started here during our time here in Flemingsberg, and that are still available for partnering. And some of these projects have been terminated for different reasons. Some of the projects have been coming back to us. So today, our portfolio of projects looks like this. So we have one project where we are currently working together with our partner, Day One Biopharmaceuticals, the top project there. And then we have a number of projects where we are currently looking for partners. And then at the bottom here is a number of undisclosed projects that are still sort of in the startup phase that we are looking to start to fill the pipeline when some of these projects become licensed in the future. And this is just an example of the kind of deal terms that you can get from these early stage licensing. So the deal that we have with Day One includes milestone payments that can potentially reach $316 million US. And on top of that, we can also get royalties on sales if that becomes a successful product on the market. So there's really quite a substantial upside compared to the investments that we have made in these programs. And then if we just sort of look into today, if we take a look back at the predictions that we made for the market, the choices we made working on small molecules, working on oncology, working with preclinical licensing model, we can start to look at the medical need. This is a slide that's partly in Swedish, but these are from Socialstyrelsen, a list of the most common causes of death in Sweden, and it's divided between women on the top here and men on the bottom. And you can see the two top bars here for both sexes are cardiovascular diseases and cancer. And I think this is very interesting to note. On the right here is the development of these different diseases over time and how common they have been as a cause of death. You can see that the dashed lines here are the cardiovascular disease, and in the 70s, that was by far the most common cause of death. But then there's been a steady decline over the years up until today, where actually in some groups of the population, cancer is sort of taking over as the most common cause of death, over cardiovascular disease. And as you can see with cancer, there has been a decline, absolutely. There's a number of new treatments out there that benefit patients, but there's still a lot to be done. And if you look at the deal making in the pharma industry, looking at different stages when those deals were made. So this is again a timeline from 2008 up until 2023, which is the latest year where we have some data. And the dark blue and the gray bars here represent deals that were made at discovery stage or preclinical stage. And then the top bars here represent deals made during phase 1, 2, and 3. And as you can see here, over the years, there's been sort of a growth, and in the latest years, it's been keeping steady, that the absolute majority of deals that are made between companies like us and larger pharma companies do occur at the discovery or the preclinical stage, which is very nice for us, of course. And then if you look at different indications, this is you're looking at the deals done during 2023. You can see that oncology is by far the largest indication where those deals are made. And if you look at different modalities, I mean, we work with small molecule drugs. So that's also the largest in terms of largest modality in where those deals are made. There's also a number of, antibody drug conjugate deals and protein peptide deals. And then we see the newer modalities here with the cell and gene therapy as well. And then if you look at approved drugs during 2024, I think there were some 50 new drugs approved in the US, and 48% of those drugs were small molecule drugs. So small molecules are still making up a substantial part of the new medicines coming to patients. And as far as we can see, this will continue to be the case, sort of in the foreseeable future. Then I thought I should just end with some of my sort of personal reflections and learnings from this startup journey that we've been through. And I think one thing that helped us a lot in the beginning was that we were a team that had industry experience, and with that we also had customer insight. We sort of knew what customers expect from projects like the ones we were trying to sell, and we also knew sort of our market. And I think that's very important. You need to somehow access knowledge about your market when you start up. We decided to focus on an efficient technology and also on this collaborative mindset. And when you have that collaborative mindset from the start, you also have that in the back of your head when you recruit people. That becomes one of the key aspects of new recruitments, is their ability to collaborate and work in teams. And having that mindset from the start really helped us to build the team we have today, with a lot of people that are very dedicated to collaborating with their peers within the company. One other success factor, I think, is that we decided to focus on preclinical drug discovery. And that enabled us to build an expertise in that specific area, rather than trying to cover all the full process of drug development, also try to build clinical expertise into the company. It becomes very challenging to try to cover all of those different disciplines that you need, and also maintaining the high quality of work that you need to be able to bring drugs to the market in the end. We've also been able to build a portfolio of programs to spread risk. It's inevitable when you start new projects around completely novel drug targets that some of those will fail. But then having a portfolio of projects, you can still have projects that survive and also start new ones, so you can spread the risk in that respect. And then we also benefited from the startup and scale-up ecosystem here in the Stockholm-Uppsala area. We were actually part of the Uppsala Innovation Center Accelerator program when we started the company. I told you about the Karolinska and the Royal Institute of Technology, scale-up facilities, and then having access to the labs and the ecosystem here in Flemingsberg has also helped us immensely over the years. And of course, there are a number of acknowledgements that has really enabled this journey. First of all, a lot of acknowledgement goes to my fellow co-founders. To really have a team when you start the company, to me, I can't see how any of us would have been able to do this on our own. You will be through a lot of ups and downs in the process. And then, to be able to celebrate those ups together, but also carry each other through those downs, really, that helps a lot. And you can really support each other in that process and on that journey. And then, of course, all the past and present employees of Sprint, a lot of whom are here today as well. We had sort of bits of the expertise in the co-founder team to be able to do what we wanted to do, but we did not have all of the expertise. So we really needed to bring in people that had that specific expertise and build the team. And a lot of people have contributed over the years to bring us to where we are today. And then, of course, we need to acknowledge our investors. Our largest shareholder today made their first investment in 2010 in the company. So they've been with us the whole time and have been a very patient shareholder over the years. We have also had access to various grants, of course, some funding from Vinnova, some EU funding, also from the Foundation for Strategic Research in Sweden. We had 2 industry PhD students over the years that have been able to work on sort of more explorative aspects of our projects. And then, of course, our various partners, not only business partners, but also companies that we work in, both here in Sweden and around the world, to be able to do what it is that we do. And I thought I should just end with this picture from our labs, how they look today after some refurbishment. And with that, I thank you for your attention.